Go to your
What's up,
page.
guys? It's MikeyTMMA right here with my boy Fraymous, and we're here with a half reaction video to what we just saw in Bellator, half preview for what we're going to see tomorrow morning or mid-afternoon from the UFC. What's up, buddy? Thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me, dude.
I
We
mean,
had a good time
we kind of
last weekend. Let's keep it rolling.
yeah, we did it on yours last time. We'll do it on mine this time. We should figure out like a name because my thing is like too centered around myself, and I'm starting to realize it's so much easier to do it when you have other people to bounce ideas off of, you know?
Yeah, I'm the same way. So yeah, let's try and figure out the thing we can put together. We can start putting together our own content, man.
Yeah, for sure. And I saw you made some picks. So you made like some short clips on your channel with your picks for the fights,
I did.
the
Bringing
UFC
up all my
fights. You pull those up real quick because I'm kind of curious.
yeah,
I
bringing
got
up
the
all my notes right now.
pulling up the card as we
Yeah, with the card as well. I'm actually on Sherdog right now. I get all of my. I do 90% of my like research stuff. I start with like one of the cards and stuff just through Sherdog and the
I'm not
Fight
gonna
Finder.
lie. I'm that guy that literally can't get past Wikipedia because I mean 99.9% of the time it's reliable. Sometimes they'll sneak some funny stuff in there, but you got to just be cognizant, I guess. I mean it's a good card. I mean honestly, there's just as many good fights on the undercard as there are some big names on the undercard as there are on the main card. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean
really excited for the whole card actually. The
yeah, top to
everybody.
bottom.
I mean, Josh Emmett, come on. Josh Emmett's the opening fight on the card. That tells you right there, and he's an 11-1 fighter.
You remember
Uh,
the fight where I don't know if it was first or his second fight after all those years of Team Alpha Male trying to get him in. He's a NorCal guy, isn't he? I think.
yeah, he's an alpha male guy. You talking about the one?
Yeah.
Are you about to talk about the finger?
Oh, so can
Oh,
tell our fans out there, if anybody's listening, how nasty it was. Ugh. It reminded me of the Kevin. We saw a basketball. I'm not sure if you're a basketball fan, but we saw a basketball injury here this past week with Gordon Hayward, who just signed a borderline max deal with the Boston Celtics. And less than 6 minutes into the game, he completely snapped. I think he snapped his fibia or his tibia and dislocated his ankle, and it was completely disgusting. But it reminded me of an injury. Kevin Ware, a basketball player for Louisville, I believe can't remember which NCAA tournament it was, but he had the bone that went all the way through the skin, and that was just how Emmett's knuckle was. I believe he punched the cat so hard that the knuckle was coming out, and he realized it through round two.
and
So
he continued to fight
he
with it
continued
too.
to fight like a champ. I mean, he's got some gangster coaches that really were pushing him, but man, I can't even imagine just having the ability to throw a punch knowing that my bone is sticking out, like protruding from my skin. Takes
Yeah,
balls.
yeah. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any quit in Team Alpha Male, and if you do, you probably don't last in that camp long at all. And those
Yeah,
guys are tough out there. Those are some killers out there, and that's always what will stick with me. It's like the look of that finger with that bone coming out the side. That'll always stick with me.
yeah. I think with alpha male, one of the things that is really interesting to me is guys like Clay Guida coming in there like later in their career and not like really finding a rejuvenation of what they once were, but having at least like being around those guys and stuff and having that camaraderie. I
Yeah.
really like to see that because you see almost a re-energized performance. I can't remember who the last guy he fought. I know next fight he's fighting Joe Lozon. But his last time he fought a guy who I thought he was going to lose to, and I can't remember who the cat was, but he whooped up on him pretty good. Put that Team Alpha Male boxer wrestler style on him real good.
Yeah, Guido's a fun fighter. People give him a lot of shit for that one fight he had with Gray Maynard, but Gray Maynard should have fought him. He should have chased him down. No, the last fight that his last fight was Eric Koch, and
That's what
I
it
was,
was. Yeah. And Eric
but
Koch had been having injury problems, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right before that. And so he hadn't fought in a while, and he was like really touted for a while and ended up coming back. And yeah, Guida kind of put the smackdown on him.
yeah, but if you remember in the fight before that, Guido lost to Brian Ortega, but it was only Guido
Oh,
was
but
winning.
Guida was
Guido
winning
was
the whole
winning that
fight.
fight, was whooping him, and then he just got too confident and got rocked at the very end of it too, like the last minute of the fight, I think.
Yeah, it was. I believe it was the very last minute, and it was it was crazy because I'm a huge Ortega fan. Been a fan of him for a long time, just through learning about like the jiu-jitsu world and stuff. And he's always been that child prodigy. And
Like 20 seconds left in the fight, and Ortega hit him with a knee.
And it happened in his last fight as well against who was it? The Moicano, I believe. He was it was a scrap, but he was losing the scrap, and then he ends up baiting him into a submission on the ground in the last like half of the third round, just like he did with Guida. It's crazy to have that type of tenacity to finish it in that position.
Yeah, Ortega's got that. I mean, he's still technically undefeated. He's got that one no contest, but he's still technically undefeated. And
you're right. Who was the no contest to?
Was no contest is Mike Bellator, and that was Ortega popped for a popped in that test.
Something. Was it a diuretic or was it something actually serious? Because I remember before he had all his injuries.
It was an anabolic.
Oh, it was.
It was
that sucks,
man. It was the let's see.
Come on, Brian, you're better than that.
Drostanolone, yeah, something like.
Man, when I was my first year,
I don't know anything. I can't pronounce half of these drugs or these synthetics. I get all my stuff, and for all my anti-doping information, I follow Dave or Dimspace at Dimspace on Twitter. That is my anti-doping go-to.
Do you know how to spell that off the top of your head? I'm gonna follow them real quick.
Dimspace. Dimspace. And at Dimspace, and that's pretty much any anti-doping question that you can think of. That is the guy to go to.
Interesting. Interesting.
He's a USADA specialist.
Let's see. I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to. Should I just go to like YouTube on my phone to like tweet it, the link to it? Because I don't know if either of us have done that yet.
Oh yeah, absolutely did not do it, but yeah, that's how you do it. You go to.
Wait, you think you can do it, and I can just retweet it or something?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Okay, cool. I didn't because I'm sitting here looking at it and I don't see. I'm not familiar with these buttons. I see screen share. Oh, we can screen share. That's awesome, man. I love technology. Oh man, but yeah, those Bellator fights tonight. My boy here didn't get to see them live. Unfortunately, he's been trying to catch up on the highlights, but it left I don't want to say a bitter taste in my mouth, but it most certainly left a lot to be desired, if you know what I'm saying. Mousasi had all this expectation, and we knew Schlemenko's deal. I even had a tweet on Twitter. I go, I'm just saying, Uriah got caught by Gegard got caught by Uriah with that spinning stuff, and Schlemenko knocked out Melvin Manhoef with that spinning stuff. And what does he do? He just comes out there in the first 30 seconds, at least 3 spinning back fists or spinning back elbows. He even had 1 or 2 that even landed. But man, if Fraymous, if you don't know, basically what ended up happening was Schlemenko landed 1 good punch, just I believe it was a left straight right on the right eye of Mousasi. That completely shut his eye. Second round starts, completely shuts his eye. Can't even see. You can tell in his fighting style he can't see. Literally based on the way that he was throwing these kicks towards that side of the body, so he couldn't really see them as they were coming up. And man, it was not what I expected from Mousasi. He just didn't win any fans, and it's okay. I mean, if you put on a really good fight for the fans and they like it, and even if you lose, maybe you gain some fans, but when you're supposed to win like that and you're that big of a favorite and you're getting paid all of this money, I feel like you owe it to the fans. And even though he was fighting with 1 eye, it's really hard to criticize him. I really thought he got dominated by a guy who, I mean, he's a has-been, who's a cheater, a proven cheater. And this is him allegedly off of the juice. So if he can't beat him, I mean, what does that say about the other middleweights in Bellator that supposedly aren't supposed to be any good, like Rafael Carvalho or Alessio Sakara? I believe Sakara was in the UFC at one point.
Alessio Sakara is probably past his prime, but he's one of my favorite fighters of all time. And people always look at me weird when I say that. I also think he has the best ink game in the entire history of MMA. Name another fighter who has such high detail as Alessio Sakara. That's dope.
Wait,
But no,
he's not
I
is he the one from Italy or do you know? I can't remember where he's
yes.
from. Because I know I watched an event from Italy, and there was a guy who competed for Bellator who was like the main draw, and I thought it was him, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, he's from Italy.
Yeah,
He's
man,
a kickboxer initially.
his last fight that he had, I cannot remember who the guy he fought was, but it was basically the whole crowd was there to see him. Oh, it was the night they had kickboxing fights, and there's actually a crazy story. I don't know if you ever heard. Are you familiar with any of like the Glory kickboxing or the Bellator kickboxing stuff?
Yes.
So you know Joe Schilling, obviously, stitch him up.
Yeah.
So allegedly, they say that after I believe he won his fight, his kickboxing fight that night. It ended up not airing like till 2 weeks later, of course, like Bellator likes to do. But supposedly, him and his team almost got somebody tried to jump them while they were leaving the building, and then they post all these pictures on Instagram with all their knuckles all jacked up and bloody and stuff. And man, that was a crazy story. I remember catching that. That's one of those Reddit gems you find.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I have to check all that out. Schilling's been around, man. That dude's a legend in his own right.
Yeah, and if you watch his fights with Simon Marcus and Glory, really his early Glory fights, I know his MMA record was really salty. He came in and he tried with Bellator. He had a really rough go at it first, and then he had a couple wins in a row with Bellator. I think he knocked out Melvin Manhoof, and then maybe he had one more win, and then
He
he
got
got
knocked out
starved by Hisati Kato.
in both too. Kato knocked him out in
MMA
kickboxing
and
too.
kickboxing. Yeah, that's crazy to me that he came back and challenged him in his own sport, and he still got slept. One was a spinning back fist, and one was just like a flying Superman punch, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's
Either
because
way,
it's because he's so confident. Is that's the thing was he just thought he was gonna walk through in both fights.
yeah. Well, sometimes you live and you learn the hard way.
No, no, absolutely, that's true, and this is the type of thing that like Dana White says it all the time. Is the whole mantra that UFC was built on was anything can happen, and you know it really can. I mean, we've
And
seen
that's part
that.
of the
That's one of the most fun things about this sport is that it really does just take one shot and your night's over.
and it's not even just the night's over. It's just like sometimes those moments where it's just the one shot. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine watching the fights earlier. Just single moments that we remember that just like changed everything that we knew about MMA. When Diaz hit Conor with that 1-2, and we saw that Conor was human for the first time. Just stuff like that. Like you can't put that stuff into words, man.
Yeah, no, you can't. That 1-2 is gonna be iconic forever. It's just gonna be it's just gonna go
And
down as one of those moments.
that event with Holly getting choked after she's winning the fight, getting choked out and trying to punch as she's going unconscious. That's just such an iconic moment. That event, I got the poster right there. That was from Reddit
Man,
Secret Santa.
I'll let you
In
know
case you guys
this.
read it.
I'm a I'm a huge Holly fan too. I'm very open about my bias towards fighters, like when it comes to being a fan. But on here, I always treat them
Oh yeah,
fairly. Um,
me. Right.
and
I'm pretty.
but I'll tell you
Yeah,
this:
go ahead.
I paid my rent on the Misha Tate Nate Diaz parlay I hit that night. I had both. I took both Misha and Nate that night, and they both paid off. And I paid my rent on their
Well,
wins that
that's one
night.
way to do it, sir. Man, whew. That takes
And, you know, and it's
balls to
funny.
steal, though. Those are
The,
some huge underdogs.
it's funny. My roommate at the time was a huge Lakers fan, and he goes, "Man, you're taking the underdogs. You might as well take the Lakers too." And I thought about it, and I didn't. And the odds were so crazy that I would have that ended up being like the biggest odds in history on that three. If I'd hit that parlay, I would have won like 32 grand.
Wait, I'm sorry, I zoned out for a second. What was the third fight you said you would have?
It wasn't the third fight. It was the Lakers basketball game that night because the Lakers played Golden State and they upset them.
Oh my god, yeah, but you would have never
My
seen that.
roommate tried to get me to do it just because he was a huge Lakers fan. He was like, "You should just throw that in there if you're gonna go ahead and."
So how does that work? If you get two of them, do you still get paid something, or do you have to
Nah,
hit all three to get?
I would have had it all three.
Oh yeah, see that kind of ruins it. Honestly, in retrospect, looking back at the Holly Holm and Nate Diaz thing, those were relatively. I mean, if you take away all the allure of Holly knocking out Ronda and the dramatic fashion that she did and how she just completely changed the landscape of women's MMA. And then you take away what Conor did in his meteoric rise. Stylistically, that wasn't really something hard to see coming. Just like, really, if we thought about it, like when I saw Holly getting matchup with Ronda, everyone was like, well, this is going to be just another girl that can't stop the takedown and she's going to suffer the consequences. I'm like, well,
See,
what did
that
she?
was people that were buying into Ronda's hype. I pretty think that I don't. It really blew my mind that people were picking. Like, and I knew that Honda. Sorry, I'm calling through the Reddit meme
Honda
now.
Housey.
I'm calling through the fucking Reddit meme. Um, no, the Honda Housey. Yeah. I knew that obviously Ronda has something special to her judo, but I don't know. I took Holly in that one as well. You can't. You couldn't have convinced me that somebody with the striking background of Holly Holm and the grappling at her like that she has at her exposure that she's exposed to at Winklejohn. You couldn't convince me that she was going to lose the Ronda. I
Mm-hmm.
thought she was going to finish her quicker, to be honest.
Yeah, and honestly, I was gonna, now that we brought up Holly and also Honda Housey and all that stuff, what are your thoughts on this whole Cyborg Holly thing? Now that they're talking about this actually being a real possible thing,
It's where they should have
I'll believe it.
started. Jermaine should have never been in there. Jermaine should have never been an option, to be
I mean,
honest. She
wouldn't
wasn't.
if Cyborg hadn't gotten suspended, she wouldn't have been in there. It would have been Holly
They,
and Cyborg.
and they should have just waited a little bit longer. Ended up getting retroactive. She ended up getting retroactively suspended anyway, and they gave her a reduced suspension. So she ended up not really missing any time that she wouldn't have necessarily missed. I think they should have waited, but that's hindsight. And
Yeah, always
honestly,
2020.
it is always. And I don't have. I don't. I think it's the fight they should have started with. Jermaine should have never been in there, and I'm surprised Jermaine's still on the roster after her stunt.
Yeah, I mean,
She embarrassed the UFC and she embarrassed herself. I don't think she embarrassed herself.
Overeem was embarrassed to be Dutch after that. Like, he even said it. I want to carefully watch my words here because this is my fellow countrywoman. But what she did is the act of a coward. Like, you're not hurt. You took a fight like 2 months after they stripped you of the belt. Like, you didn't.
You refuse to defend your title.
Everything that she said was either a lie or just a ploy to get out of having to fight Cyborg, the lady that no one wants to fight,
Yeah, absolutely. But I think we talked about this before, and I've talked about this with a couple of people on Twitter as well. Esther Chanel, she's a blogger and covers a lot of combat sports. Her and I talk about this fairly frequently, actually. We've discussed it a few times, that there's no reason Cyborg shouldn't be promoted more than she is. Cyborg is a female fighter that can knock you out with her hands. She should be the number one, one of their number one, like, drawing points right now, because women's MMA is at a really awesome point to where it can just keep growing and growing. The ceiling is like not even like their limit. Like, the sky is the limit for them.
Yeah,
Like,
no, and I personally feel like they haven't really been taking the necessary steps, like with the whole Amanda Nunes thing, the first openly gay champion. Like, that's a whole market you could get into with women and that whole community together. And then also,
it was weird because they didn't actually promote Liz Carmouche when she fought Ronda Rousey. They made it a big deal that she was the first, openly gay fighter to fight in the UFC. And then they have an openly gay champion. And remember, I don't know if you remember, but I'm going to say a while back, I'm probably as far as back as maybe like 2012, Dana White did an interview, and he said that he wished that if there was an openly gay fighter in the UFC at the time, that he wished they would come forward so they could set a precedence, and that just to actually help the sport. And nobody ever came out, which I can understand why. There's a lot of masculinity, not even in the sport. I feel like a lot of the fighters would be understanding, but I feel like it would be a lot of the fans that would have the initial backlash.
Let me ask you this. Are all the openly gay athletes in the UFC females? Are there any gay males that we know of? Because I actually have never heard that being brought up before. That's really interesting. I feel like there might be, but maybe just not in the UFC.
No, we
I mean,
don't. There's never been a openly
openly
gay or bisexual male fighter in the UFC.
interesting. I'd be willing to bet there's somebody out there that is.
I'd be willing to bet too, and I bet you that's part of the reason. I bet you Dana White knew somebody that was, and that's why he said he wishes somebody would come forward because he knew that he had somebody on the roster, and I wish they would as well. And the fans that would get offended by it, we don't need them watching the sport anyway.
Right, right. There's a lot of things I feel like the UFC could be doing to promote different areas better, like the Tyron Woodleys and the
Woodley's problem is that Woodley gets himself into trouble. Woodley sticks his foot in his mouth too much, and he talks. Woodley's a good actor. He's great at being on the booth. He's a great fighter. He just needs a PR team. He needs a publicist.
I do like he's trying with his little Champ Camp series, and he does seem to have some type of swagger about him. He's almost for me in that realm where like 3 or 4 or 5 more fights where he's just like dominating his opponents and like really shutting them down at their own game, kind of similar to like a GSP. He feels like almost like
what he won't
Floyd
make it.
Mayweather.
Masvidal would wreck him.
Masvidal would. Yeah, I
ruin him.
I actually agree. Like, let's just say he was able to somehow make it through that unscathed. Like, he reminds me of almost like he's like in this Floyd Mayweather realm where it's like he's not fighting to entertain the fans. He just wants to keep that belt because he knows he's going to get more money when he has that belt.
I mean, Dana said it many a times that belt is the difference in tax brackets. That belt changes your life.
Oh, absolutely, and they know it, and that's why they fight so hard for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I just feel like they could have done a really good job promoting him to the African American market, which is predominantly a boxing audience for the most part. I feel like Kevin Lee really could have been that guy. He kind of shot himself in the foot with all his antics.
I think Kevin Lee can still be that guy. Kevin Lee, if he showed anything, it's that he is probably a future champion at that weight class.
Yeah, I mean,
he was 10 more seconds, and the referee would have stepped in that first round. A healthy Kevin Lee walks out of that fight with the title.
Yeah, he's just it's similar to the Conor thing where he's gonna have to work on his cardio, and I know that staph infection and weight cut thing. I would personally, for a guy like that, I would like to see them implement the new weight classes. And I know this is not even anywhere close to what we started this whole video talking about.
Though he's going up anyway. His next fight, he says, is going to be at welterweight.
Yeah, man, I would love to see, because I've heard a lot of different opinions on this, and for me, they say like, oh, it'll weaken the talent divisions. It'll weaken, like, if guys go up from 155, down from 185, or whatever the case may be, it'll be less pool. And I'm like, well, just shrinking the roster, like, get a lot of the bums at the bottom that shouldn't even be there because we've never heard of them. Like, we've got cats that I've never heard of. Their first UFC fights, or not headlining, they're on the main card of legit pay-per-views. Like,
well, that's because they're building their cards now towards marketing building. They said years ago they want the UFC to be a bigger organization to where it almost becomes like a league. They want to be like a soccer. So, soccer has a huge governing board and a lot of, or is it football as they call it overseas, but the leagues kind of interchange. That's why they did like the UFC China, the UFC Brazil. I mean, the tough China, the tough Brazil. That's why they had the headquarters in the different places, because eventually they're planning on doing all the markets. So there would, just because there's like one guy on the main card that is like their first fight, he may be relevant in another market, even though we have no idea who the hell he is here. And that's kind of why that's kind of why they do that.
It's weird though, man, because I don't want to say it waters down the value of the product, but it kind of looks that way from like a hardcore like guy who watches every single event's perspective, because it's just like I want to see guys that like the Winnipeg card. It's literally because it's on Fox. They wanted to make it pay-per-views they've shown. It's RDA and Lawler, Aldo and Lamas, Santiago Ponzinibbio and Mike Perry, and then Glover Teixeira and Misa Cirkunov. Then the last 3 pay-per-views we've seen.
You cut out on the last part.
I don't know what their plan is.
Well, they're going to stack the Fox cards right now because they're in the middle of the renegotiation period with Fox. So right now, if this card goes off and it turns out to be one of their biggest Fox cards, they have that on the table to say, hey, look, we just brought in these numbers for this last event, and now that since they're out of the exclusive negotiating period, they'll be able to, if these numbers do good, they'll be able to shop these numbers to other networks too. So of course,
man, you better hope these numbers be good though, because I can't guarantee that these names. I mean, these are hardcore names. These are guys that not like I remember Holly's first fight after she fought, I believe Shevchenko, and it got over 2 million, I think, overnight or so. I can't remember how the TV ratings work, but it was astronomical numbers for a UFC event, let alone one headlined by 2 women. So obviously she got the rub. Look at Robbie Lawler, RDA. It's like, are these really names? Jose Aldo, all these former champions and stuff that have kind of fallen from grace. Are these going to bring in big ratings, or is this just going to devalue your pay-per-views at the beginning of the year because you used a lot of your big #1 contender and hot prospect fights?
The long-term goal isn't the pay-per-view market anyway. The long-term goal is eventually to build a product that is on your TV the way that football and soccer are on your TV. You don't need pay-per-views. And that's, if you think about it, you have other promotions doing stuff now. Like, if you look, Bellator and Professional Fighters League have both done, back when it was World Series of Fighting, have both done NASCAR events. To where they would where they put like 3 or 4 fights on in the middle of a NASCAR event. And I mean,
did you see the first PFL event where they literally had it and it was raining? They had to cancel the race, and they literally let the fighters fight. I think it might have been John Fitch or somebody was fighting. I think it was Brian Foster. He was the guy who had fought Justin Gaethje at one point in time. He kept slipping because there was literally water on the canvas from the rain that was pouring. They did a terrible job planning it.
Brian Foster is one of those guys that at a different time and a different lifetime in the sport that he was the top of the sport. He's the type of guy. He's the type of guy that, your favorite fighter could probably learn something from him in the gym. He just didn't transition over as well to the big leagues.
Right.
There's a couple guys like that I remember watching. Like, there's Brian Foster. I felt that way. There was a guy back in the day, Brock Larson, that I'll always say is probably my top pick for that guy. For that position. But let's get back on track here, man. How do you so I'm going to catch up on the Bellator fights. I really want to see that fight with Mousasi, because
there's
just going off not saying anything. When Mousasi left the UFC, I caught a little bit of flack. I've had an unpopular opinion. I love Mousasi, actually. Mousasi is the fighter that I use as a prime example of why fights should be scored better for fighters that are being active off their back. If you remember the Mousasi King Mo fight back when it was Elite XC,
I do, yes.
That I believe that Mousasi won that fight off his back. And much like I think it was the Akiyama Lieben fight was very similar, but actually Lieben was finally able to sink in that choke at the end. But I thought that Mousasi should have been awarded that decision, even though he was on his back most of the time. But eventually we'll catch up on that with the rules and whatnot.
Hey,
I'm still a young sport of that.
I just sent you a link over here that has like a 4-minute video of the highlights of the fight, so you can kind of get a general idea of what I was talking about with Mousasi's performance tonight. It's over there on the right side. I don't know if it popped up for you. Yeah. It's just a YouTube. I think it's a 4-minute video. I'm about to actually watch it myself so I can have an idea and make sure that my eyes didn't deceive me. Because the argument was that Mousasi won. They say Mousasi won rounds 1 and 2, but the only reason why they say Mousasi won round 2 is because he spent about half the round with back control, and he wasn't necessarily really putting a lot of damage on him, but he had control. But the thing is, when Schlemenko was on his feet, Mousasi couldn't see because of that punch that landed in the first round. So he was getting the better of him on the feet, like Mousasi's face literally straight up looked like Rocky. Out of any, pick your favorite Rocky movie. There was a meme I saw. It just was Gegard's face tonight and Rocky from some random Rocky movie, and they literally just look the exact same.
Well, Mousasi has always, in my opinion, been a bit overrated. He's been exciting and he was fun, but I never thought he was going to win a world title. And a lot of people were really surprised when he left the UFC. And I caught some flack when he left the UFC, and I was like, I understand them not wanting to pay what he was asking. There's no offense. I believe the fighter should be paid. I don't want to get into that pay discussion game. So that's probably a bet.
Yeah.
So, but I understand also where they're coming from in the sense that, you know, I don't believe that Mousasi would have ever won a world title in the UFC. He could have been booked 100. He could have been booked a lot, but he is not their style. He wasn't their style of fighter. He is
Yeah.
too timid. He's too comfortable getting beat up to try and find his position. He's just he's just too comfortable inside of a fight sometimes. And while he's very methodical, and he's got very accurate technique. He's one of those fighters that has technique is so good that we often look past whether or not they're able to actually put it together in a fight. BJ Penn is somebody that's been like that throughout his career as well. Everybody always gave him a pass because his technique was so good, but there was a lot of times where BJ didn't put it together at all, but he still got a pass because we knew how good he really was. And I feel like Mousasi gets a pass because of his potential and his technique, but he doesn't necessarily put it together as well as he is touted to. And I'm watching the highlights now, and I see that he at one point in time even had Schlemenko in a rear naked and couldn't finish it.
Oh, several times. Honestly, that's what I was saying. Even in that first round where Mousasi dominated, you could see very, very quickly from the beginning that Mousasi did not want any part of the striking game. And it's not that I think, for me, it almost kind of looked like Rory versus Paul Daly. He felt him out on the feet for a second, immediately went for the takedown because he knew the dangers of trying to trade with him. But did you see the slow motion of I believe it was the left that came over the top and just – it allegedly might have broken his orbital or fractured his eye socket or whatever the medical terminology is there.
Yeah, when Schlemenko's come off the cage. But, a lot of people are going to – and like you brought it up earlier about that test that he had popped for, not Mousasi, but Schlemenko. But even without the juice, he's one of the best strikers in the game, and he has been for years. There's a reason why he was a Bellator middleweight champion. There's a reason why he went in there and beat up Mousasi.
Absolutely. I was
surprised that they matched him up with him right off the bat. I mean, because if you think about it, they tried to do the same thing with who did he beat? Was it Tito?
Who are you talking about?
Schlemenko. That's what I'll say.
Schlemenko was the 85-pound champion. They made it Tito's first fight. It was actually, I believe, the first Bellator pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken, because it was in South Haven. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. South Haven, Mississippi is only like 30, if even that. So it was really close to us. If I'm not mistaken, he choked him out quick because there was so much of a size advantage. It wasn't even a fair fight. It looked like
thinking of it. They tried to put him against somebody else a while
Well, he knocked out Melvin Manhoef. I can't remember. I also fought in Memphis, Tennessee against Kendall Grove. I was at that fight. I also have that poster. There he is right here.
Yeah, I mean, he has wins like
Kendall Grove actually had a broken nose in that fight, though.
Yeah, but exactly. Oh wow, he
right now.
He has wins over all the champions and former Bellator champions. He has wins over Ward. He has wins over Halsey. And
wait, who are we talking about again?
I'm talking about Alexander over here. I'm looking at his
Oh
record.
yeah, because he was the middleweight king there for a while before. What happened was Tito beat his ass, and then he had popped. Somebody took his belt, and then he popped. I think he might have lost to Carvalho. Either that or he popped and they stripped him. I can't remember. Did he have a loss in there after Tito?
He knocked out no, it was the Melvin fight. It was the Manho fight.
Well,
He
that's when
he knocked him out and then popped in that fight and lost it. And then he went
God,
over.
that knockout was so scary. I've seen Melvin Manhoef get knocked out so many times where it's just like, is he gonna get up from that one?
Dude, that Robbie Lawler fight is so the craziest thing I've ever seen in the sport.
God, when he's just literally
Robbie
like
could on
leg.
one leg, he beat
Robbie,
him up. They just like cracked him.
Doesn't even know how to shoot leg kicks because he's been kicked so hard, like he literally has run out of option, and he just slips a punch, ducks, and it's just like one huge left hook, lands, one more, lights out. Oh, it was so perfect.
Oh man, I remember watching that and just coming out of my chair in excitement. Yeah, dude.
Oh, that's dope. I have one of my favorite possessions is I have the UFC Top 100 Knockouts DVD. That was like what I bought to get me into the sport. Like I can't even remember 6-7 years ago now, and that was like my introduction. It was like it must have been the 2010 or 2011 one because I can't remember it. So because I only started watching like my junior year of high school because I had some friends who were some pretty high level wrestlers and whatnot, but that was how I got my way into the sport. Was this incredible? Did I show you this DVD tower over here the other day? Just nothing but chronological orders. From UFC
nice.
48 to I got it all the way down to 186.
Oh, that's
but
awesome.
It's not all the way.
What's your favorite event so far? Do you have one individual favorite
of all time?
Yeah, man,
that's such a tough question because there were so many like crazy ones. Like I remember specifically, I think was it maybe not my favorite, but maybe my most memorable. If you remember the event where Anderson broke his leg, Weidman, I think it was also Miesha Tate, Rousey too. And it was also, if I'm not mistaken, Barnett getting knocked out by the Travis Brown elbows from the clinch, if you remember.
Don't remind me of that.
Even like Chris Lieben's retirement fight, he might have fought like someone crazy like Uriah Hall or something like that. I can't remember.
He retired on the stool against Uriah Hall.
That's what it was. Yeah. And I think that was all one
my favorite fighter of all time.
Chris Lieben is.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the definition of an OG, an original gangster.
Like he defines the word heart.
I would have to say UFC 196, even though the majority of the card was not anything to be noteworthy. The top two fights, I mean, dude, you can't get much better than McGregor Diaz 1 and Holman Tate. Like that was just so, especially like I said earlier, after what what Conor did to Aldo and what Holly did to Ronda, like for that to be their first fight and it was together and for them to both lose in dramatic fashion like that. Joe Rogan said it's just what a night, what a night. But I'm also there's also some older ones as well that really tickle my pickle, but
how do you feel about another day card tomorrow?
Man, honestly, I think the prelims, I like you said, like we said earlier, I think that they're obviously appealing to their the guys buying the tickets out there based on who they're putting on the main card. But I mean, I'm looking at this Marcin Held versus some guy I've never heard of, but Marcin Held's a guy who's had a really tough run in the UFC, but he's a legit fighter. I fight Brian Kelleher, another really exciting guy. Sam Alvey, I don't know if you saw that. He was facing I think he took the fight on like 10 days notice. He was facing a 35-pound weight cut.
He missed
it by 4 pounds, so the fight's still on. So that's going to be a good fight. I mean,
that's going to be a boring fight then.
I say that. You have to learn how to appreciate a smiling Sam fight. You have to know.
I do appreciate it, but it's weird.
Like his character. His little shtick.
He's a better fighter than what he puts out there. He's a way better fighter than what he puts out there, and that's what bothers me about that. He knows he has that, but if he just went out there and just like let it go instead of like starting up slow and just getting in his head, then he would be I mean, he would be able to
He's not
set
the
up
best
that hand way
athlete.
more.
He's not winning any like best athlete competitions in the UFC, but he's got a really like decent fight IQ. I mean, granted, this is not Rashad of the Rashad that we know and love, but I mean, he beat Rashad Evans. I mean, that's no feather in his cap. I know it was Rashad at 85, long after his prime, but I mean, the guy beat Rashad Evans. Are you gonna really hate on him? I'm not.
Not at all. I love me some Smiling Sam. I do.
Yeah,
It
but I
was
mean, go ahead.
yeah, he was. I mean, think about it. He's been on a tear at the what he's lost like he's like one and I mean he's like 5-1 in his last six. So he hasn't like he's lost what Talis Ladies and then he comes off of that and beats Rashad Evans. I mean, he's definitely a top 15 fighter.
Hollis did kind of beat the crap out of him. Yeah, he's like right there, kind of in that Theodoro range where it's like I get there and then I lose and then I'm back to like trying to get back to the top 15, but you never probably going to crack the top 10. But you know, he's still an entertaining guy. I like his demeanor. I like the fact that his wife's in his corner. I think that's really special. Think he's a very inspiring guy. I don't know. Have you ever had a chance to like interview him? I know a lot of people on Twitter that I follow have had like a chance to interview him. Say he's the nicest guy ever.
I have not. We should try and see if we can get him on here sometime.
Yeah, dude, I can try my best. I usually can swing some crazy magic if need be. But yeah, I mean, looking down at the rest of the card, I mean, it gets even better. I mean, Artem Lobov versus
by the way,
Feely,
not to interrupt you, but Elias actually has a win over Sam Alvey.
Did they fight already? I forgot. Was that a while ago?
They fought a few years ago, a couple years ago, and Elias actually picked up the win then. I think Elias is young. Elias isn't even – he'll be 30 this year or next year.
Weird style to him, but I kind of like it.
And he's only lost 2 fights. I think Elias is still young enough to crack the top 10.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's got room for improvement. He gets really sloppy with some of his like I don't know if he like starts to disrespect his opponents per se, but he like will be throwing these really sloppy shots that he might think are gonna work, but like from the outside perspective, it's like you know what high level MMA is supposed to look like after watching it for so long, and it's just like he's so close. But like you said, he's got time to grow. Smiling Sam, not so much. But I mean, look at the next fight, Artem Lobov versus Andre Feely. You could put that on a prelim of a pay-per-view, and I would love it. I mean, they could always put it on any Conor McGregor card. But I mean, I love watching Artem fight. His last time, I mean, I'm not saying that
I enjoy watching Artem fight, but I wouldn't put him any higher than where he is now at best on the card. I feel
on this card.
Yeah, like no offense to Artem, I love watching him fight, but even though he put up a good fight against Cub, that doesn't really mean anything. The guy
still got smashed in the end. Like he still
got smashed in the end. He just good at marching forward and taking shots.
Yeah, but I kind of I don't know. I just always feel like because I actually one of the very few seasons I did watch of Tough was with an old roommate of mine. Shout out to Trace Austin. But we would watch. It was the season with McGregor and Faber, and every single time you thought Artem loses the opening fight, gets back in because Conor's his boy, and then Artem just goes out and knocks out everyone in the first round. Like something about them. I'm just a really big Conor fan, so I enjoy their camaraderie. I'm not saying that I think he has really much of a chance to beat Andre Feely, because Andre Feely by all means should win that fight. However, I have seen him lose in some fights where I thought he was gonna, do at least do better. How do I word this? He has underexceeded my expectations many, many times, and I hopefully he doesn't underexceed them enough to lose to Artem. But if he does, man, Team Alpha Male might have to find something else to do with him, or the UFC, because he's had a kind of a rough streak here lately after Yair kicked him into the oblivion.
Well, he's done that thing to where he's won like every other fight in his UFC career, and I'm not exaggerating. If you look at Andre Feely, it goes. Actually, let me pull this up because I have the card up here on Show Dog right here. You go. It goes win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. So he's due for a win.
Well, and check it out. If you look at these names,
I mean, his
losses. We'll start from the bottom. I see Jeremy Larson's Max Holloway loss, obviously beats some guy I've never heard of. Loses to Godofredo Pepe, who's a great fighter. Beats Gabriel Benitez, decent fighter. That was with a head kick and punches too. Got that flying head kick by Yair. He beats Hakron Diaz, which is a really big fight, and then he fought Calvin Kattar. That guy, I'm not sure if he was a UFC newcomer at 214 or UFC 214, but he was a really, really big surprise. I did not know that cat was going to be throwing hands like that. Feely was not ready for it, but I mean, he's a tough guy, hangs in there, but
You know
I
what's
don't know.
interesting is that Felipe Arantes that he lost, I mean that he fought and beat is actually who Josh Emmett is fighting this weekend.
Oh, really? Small world. Small world.
Yep.
I
Didn't realize it until I just clicked it.
some of these names kind of run together. They all sound a lot the same. And you said, and who was that again?
The Felipe,
Arantes?
yeah, he's actually fighting Josh Emmett, Feely's training partner.
I can't say his last fight was against Eric Perez. He lost to Andre. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Maximo Blanc, Kevin Sousa. He beat
Maximo Blanco. That's somebody that's underwhelmed in his run. So, you know, this is a really good card, though, if you think about it. I see what you Aspen Ladd and Alina Landsberg, then to jump back up, we went over the Sam Alvey. The Damian Stasiak fight, I still have hope in him.
And who's he fighting?
Damian Stasiak is fighting Brian Kelleher.
Oh, and Brian Kelleher was that cat. If you watch the MMA Hour, I believe he submitted when back at UFC 205. New York Rick, Ariel Hawani's gracious co-host or whatever the heck you want to call him, like made some contest where it's like you submitted some video explaining how bad you wanted to go to the fights, and Brian Kelleher was still like fighting in the trenches in the regional organizations and actually like put in a really good submission that was like actually like kind of getting some people's attention. And then 5 months later, he's fighting Yuri Alcantara on short notice, choking him out within I think like 2 minutes or something with a
I lost money on that fight.
I
have a hard time betting against Yuri Alcantara. And you know what's crazy? He actually has a Yuri Alcantara wants to fight George St. Pierre. That's how many weight classes. Yep, that's how many weight classes that Yuri has fought in. Yuri has fought one time.
So he dropped all the way from 70 to 35. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I am. I'm trying to remember if it was a grappling or if they actually fought.
Oh, okay. Because God, if he did, that's like almost as bad as Rumble Johnson at 170. But he looks like to be like at his own 135. So I don't know.
All right, so yeah, I'll try and find that. It looks like it might have been a grappling that. I'll try and come across that again, but that's just one of those random things I found one day down going through the trenches of old videos.
So what are your predictions, man? If you had to guess, I mean, I know you said you did those videos, but I didn't get a chance to watch them. I'd love to hear yours before I give mine, or would you like me to give mine before you give yours?
Well, I have the main card ones, and we can go over them more. But if you want to go quick through the other ones too, I don't know if you want to do the main card, if you want to go through them all. But I'm taking Josh Emmett starting at the bottom. If you want, I'll just run through mine, or you want to do?
Yeah, you go first, and then I'll switch it.
Taking Josh Emmett. Aspen Ladd just because I'm on the train. I'm taking Warley Alves and his fight.
Oh, I didn't even catch him. That's gonna be a great fight. It looks like
he's got Salem Tuari's in for that fight now. So
better win that fight, man. He needs it.
I'm taking Andre Feely, but knowing how Andre Feely does, he's probably going to get cracked by Artem Lubov.
Oh, I'm going to laugh my butt off if it happens too.
Yeah, I'm going to be mad as hell.
I just know it's going to. I just know it.
I'm going to take Ramazan Ameev against Sam Alvey. Stasiak over Kelleher. And, I should take
guy who Marchin's fighting? I've never heard that name before. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page or anything.
Yeah, I can't say his last name.
Nasrat Haqparast. That's all we got.
One thing from him, and that's all I can say. I tried to do the research on him, and I didn't follow up.
Yeah,
so that is just.
I would go with Hell by default just because.
Held's nasty.
Dude, his jujitsu is he's some really tough opponents. He got thrown into the Lion's Den. He fought, I think it was his first fight either Diego Sanchez or his first fight was Diego Sanchez and his second was Joe Lozon or something crazy like that. Like just literally thrown into the veterans pool.
Could
Like
you imagine could you imagine being, and I used to want to be a fighter when I was younger. I really did. Could you imagine getting the phone call that's like, hey, you have to go stand in front of Joe Lawson for 15 to 25 minutes. It's like, because like, even if you win, you're not coming out like the same person. You're gonna get the
no.
snot beat out of you while you're in there.
And he's gonna be spitting that heavy Boston accent at you, talking all kinds of crap. Have you ever seen the video? It was one of Dana's vlogs back when he used to do those on YouTube way back when. But it was when him and Nick the Tooth were still friends. Nick the Tooth challenged Joe Lozon to a grappling match because Nick had just gotten his black belt from somebody.com or wherever the heck he got it from. Thought he could challenge Joe, and he goes, Dana. Jana, like, there was some kind of bet, like I'll give you $1,000 for every minute that you can survive without getting tapped out, or it was either that or he'll give
and it's
Joe.
like, yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he gave Joe $1,000 every time he submitted him.
Yeah, it was so funny, dude. So horrifying, man. Those Boston accents scare me too, man. I'm a huge Red Sox Patriots fan. Every time I go up there, I feel like such an outsider, and I get that like, oh wow, he's a Southerner look. They're like, my politeness isn't welcome up there. Everybody's so high paced and stuff.
Yeah, he after was it 155, he bled after UFC 155, Joe Lawson bled on the mat so much that Dana White mailed it to him.
Was that the fight with Jim Miller?
I believe so.
Remember. He's had a couple literal just straight out of a horror movie.
Yeah, that was the fight with him and Jim Miller.
Yeah, and then they had that rematch. Well, see, I thought, let's see, who won the first one? Was it Jim won the first one? But I thought Joe won, and then Joe won the second, but I thought Jim won.
That's exactly how it went. Yes, because I had the same boat.
Because I remember watching it, getting so excited about it, and then it was almost like, do you remember Robbie when Robbie fought Johnny Hendricks for the vacant title, and they said Johnny won, but I thought Robbie won that fight, and then they rematched, and they said Robbie won, but I thought Johnny won that fight. So it's kind of one of those things when the fights
those are two great fights. People
sleep on that. People sleep on that.
They do. And it's because of people have painted this reputation of Johnny Hendricks, so he gets what he did gets overrun. The fact that a lot of people painted Hendricks as not being as a personable character, they let that take away from the fact that Johnny Hendricks had one of the most exciting runs through the UFC during his prime.
Oh yeah, when he was just knocking out like Amir Sadala and John Fitch, and I mean, he beat
Martin Kampman.
Oh, Martin Kampman got stiffed. I think he beat Carlos Condit in that run too, a unanimous decision. He just took him down over and over again, but I mean that's still a victory in my book.
Martin Kampman was the first UFC fighter to be finished TKO'd while standing against Paul Daly.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
The worst one I can think, like getting TKO'd while standing, is the way that Terry Edom fell like a tower when he got wheel kicked by Barbosa, just like.
Well, yeah, well, like what I mean is like his back was against the cage and Daly was teeing off and he wasn't going down, so the referee stepped in. So the only thing keeping him up was Daly's hits.
That's ridiculous.
And Daly hits hard, dude. So yeah, and then getting into the main card is actually the 4-fight main card, which threw me off. And so Jonathan Wilson and Oscar Piechota open up the main card. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with either one of these guys, but I'm taking Oscar Piechota in this one. I said that in my pick as well. He has the advantage of actually being from Gdansk, so he's very local.
You did some research on these guys?
Yeah, for the main cards I did. And he's local. And do you remember the video? There was one of the viral videos that was going around a few months ago. He finished his opponent who was coming in on him in like 32 seconds in his last fight.
How exactly did he finish them? He just was it something like exciting? Like
Yeah, here, actually, I'll even send you the video.
okay, cool. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I've seen it. You see so many of those ones, and you never know which ones are current because you'll catch one and it'll end up being something from like a year ago, and you just are just now catching on to it.
Yep, no, that happens to me all the time. I'll come across something and be like, "Oh, what is this? Is this any good?" And then I'm like, "Oh, wow, yeah, from like
Oh,
3
while
years
you're
ago."
looking for that, do you remember the other night when we were talking about we brought up the Go-Go Plata by Nick Diaz, and I told you about I saw the video of the amateur cat that got the mounted Go-Go Plata and was like punching the cat in the face.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I found the video of it. I'm gonna see if I can send it to you because I got the kid's Twitter.
Was it that cat that did you see that cat that hit us up on the and told us to watch his go-go? I believe it was Nathan was his
Yeah,
name.
Nathan Holbrook. Yeah, that's him. Did you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
It was nasty. It was nasty. I mean, his striking looked terrible, but I mean, he's also like either 1-1 as an amateur or 1-1 as a pro. I'm not sure, but I mean, I look at his Twitter. The kid literally trains himself like in his garage. So I mean, respect to him for that.
That is pretty dope. I appreciate that. That's
Yeah,
how
but
that's how a lot of fighters, well, to a degree, once you get up there, you kind of
yeah,
have to go past that.
exactly. Because there's only so much. I think he trains with his brother, which is cool. I mean, that's really dope. Like, I think that's a really cool camaraderie thing. But if you really want to get to that point where you don't just want to be like a 5-5, a 6-9 pro fighter, like you really want to take your career to the next level and use that high level jiu-jitsu that you have. You gonna want to train somewhere probably not in your garage, unless you are just like the most exceptional talent in the world. You know what I'm saying?
Well, see, that's part of the problem that Jared Cannonier was run into in his UFC career. Is he only trains with a handful of guys. They got maybe 10 guys in the camp, and because they're
Mm-hmm.
still fighting out of the garage, and I see it all the time. And sorry, I just got distracted by a tweet. Trying to find this video for you, but
You're good.
no. Do you have Fight Pass?
Yes, I do.
If you look up Cage Warriors 85 on Fight Pass, the main event, it'll
Yeah.
link you to just the fight of the Oscar
Oh wait,
Piachota versus Jason
I'll
Radcliffe.
have to. I'll have to do it in the morning because my I actually
I
believe it or
got you.
not I had to cancel my card because they had some fraudulent activity, so they're sending me a new one. But usually, what I end up doing is usually when there's like a big Fight Pass event, I like lose my credit card or debit. I mean, I lose my debit card so often that I always end up canceling it and getting a new one. But the thing is, when you get a new one, they'll let you sign up for that free week again because they can't remember the account; they just remember the card number. So there's probably like 100 Michael Thompsons at least that have just been like for like a week and then canceled.
Bro,
So that's probably
I did one of those things with the WWE network, and it was supposed to be like the free week, and then you get the certain events included, and they've had me on their premium membership for like 2 years now.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, my friend actually let me. I was never really into pro wrestling at all until a friend of mine who I work with. I would trade. We started trading. Like I would give him some of my UFC DVDs, and he'd give me some of his wrestling DVDs, and like some old school stuff. Some of the stuff that like to get people going. And I was like, okay, I can see why you guys like this stuff. It's just I don't know. Everybody has their thing, I guess.
So apparently they're reporting that Schlemenko broke his arm in the second round.
Really? I'm wondering if it was from those grappling exchanges. That's interesting. He sure wasn't. He sure did not look like he was actually fighting southpaw, which I didn't realize that. Or at least he was switching to southpaw to throw this left kick to the body because
Yeah,
that
I'm
was the
looking at the
side where
picture.
Mousasi couldn't see. That was the side where Mousasi couldn't see anything. But yeah, I'm trying to think. He really didn't get like any like arm tanglements, or he didn't really have a Mousasi really wasn't throwing a lot of kicks like I expected him to do, like the way he approached Vitor Belfort or the way he approached like remember Thiago Santos at UFC 200 just beat the brakes off of him, but he felt him out first. This was like a really tentative Mousasi, and seemed like he wanted to get the fight to the ground too bad, and he like lost all confidence in his own stand-up, which, I mean, against a guy like Schlemenko clearly was not the right strategy. My question is, and it's the same question a lot of people have, is what do you do now? I mean, off this questionable decision, can you just give Mousasi the winner of Carvalho and
Oh, absolutely. A W is a W in this sport. I mean,
yeah, and in Bellator too.
And I mean, look at how hard they've tried. Like, they're committed to Benson Henderson, no matter how much Benson Henderson shows it. Just like, was it Izzy that said it a little while? That said it earlier, and he said it a long time. And it's one of the things that I really agree with him on, is that they
about the UFC knowing when to let them people go.
Yes, Benson Henderson's a great example, and like I mentioned earlier, I understood when the UFC let Mousasi walk. I understood. I can understand why. They know when to
Even
let
the
people
Rory
go.
thing to an extent with the broken nose and the performance. That one might not pan out based on how it's working out. But think about the guys who have actually come over from
Rory had a window,
UFC.
and he didn't pull the trigger because GSP was in the same camp, and that held
But
him
think
back.
about this. Think about this. Think about the guys who have come over from the UFC who have been successful in Bellator. Matt Mitrione, Czech Congo. I mean, Matt Mitrione, I mean, he almost got slept by Fedor. I mean, like, and he has not really looked that great in all of his fights, but he just hasn't lost any yet. But I mean,
he got dropped, and he almost got finished in his debut fight.
First fight, yeah, against that, it was a Hawaiian cat or something. He had a really interesting name, Carl something.
Oh, Carl Alisamu or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I didn't want to try to butcher that because I opened my mouth.
No, I butchered it. I've never been able to say it.
You did better than me, brother.
I just attempt. I mean, if we can listen to decades of Mike Goldberg say these names, I can call these fighters or whatever I want. Look, I sent out a tweet the other day about the main card when I was doing my research on the main card. Oscar Piachota is how I'm saying his name. But if you watch that fight against Radcliffe, the fight lasted 32 seconds, and they pronounce his name 3 different ways in those 32 seconds. I'm not exaggerating.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful.
Like,
that's like
what is Gedalia's name? Is it Claudia or is it Claudia?
Claudia Gedalia. I love Brendan. Like, I really like the Fighter and the Kid just for the humor of it. I don't really take a lot of substance out of it. But hearing Shab and his speech impediment, he does not know how to pronounce anyone's last name, and it is so. I almost feel like he's trolling us. He'll go Claudia Gedalia, or I can't even do it because there's so many different ways I hear people pronouncing it.
If you look at the early, her initial run in the UFC when she was coming in, they called her Claudia. And now it's Claudia. And
Claudia, yeah.
And
there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of just we're allowed to just almost say whatever at this point. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Jose Aldo.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know because I've heard some other people saying it the other way, man. And who are you to really believe unless you meet somebody like if you
that's
meet
what I
someone.
Like, I wouldn't know if he would introduce himself to me as Jose or Jose. That's what I really want to know. So just say this is the kind of thing about the sport. We're always kind of taking a shot in the dark at these names.
And that's it's like something that we think about because of our language, but they just say it. It's just natural to them. There's no alternative. So it's it doesn't make any sense. When we're asking them Jose or Jose, it's the same for them. But our language has made it so difficult where we're okay, well, tomato, tomato, potato, potato.
It's yeah, exactly. I mean, look at the co-main event, Karolina Kowalkiewicz. But
I've heard that name pronounced so many times. Kowalkiewicz.
Dude, I put in the work to get Kowalkiewicz. I can spell Kowalkiewicz by memory, not by language, but by memory now. And so I've had a couple, so don't ask me to do it. But I trained it this last week.
I heard that. And in case the situation ever arrives, you will be ready.
Yeah, I'll be ready. So what do you think about that? So the Jonathan Wilson Oscar Piachota fight, who do you have in that?
Man, I was gonna just go ahead and go from the bottom because I didn't really get to do that. I do
Oh
have
yeah,
some
yeah.
thoughts.
Go
I don't
ahead, and then you go through the
actually.
bottom,
I
and
don't
then
really.
we'll just go through the main card kind of together-ish.
Granted, there are some of these cats that you might know a little bit more so than I do because you do follow some of those Cage Warriors and stuff. But I'm going a lot of these. I'm just going off the fact that I have only seen one of those opponents, and I have seen enough from one of those opponents to not take the time to go look at the other one because I'm confident enough. Just because we're doing this at 1:21 a.m. and I did not really prepare myself for this at
Oh
all.
shit,
And
it's 2:21 here. I didn't even prepare.
realistically, like it's like a what is it like a 8 hour window before the fights start, or maybe it's a 10 hour window before the fight starts. So probably a grand total of like 12 people will see this, but it's all good. We're getting some practice in. Yeah, I'll go from the bottom. I'm gonna go
Go for it.
Emmett. I'm gonna go Aspen Ladd. I'm riding that train. Warley, I think he's got something to prove, similar to a John Moraga type performance we saw a week ago or a couple weeks ago.
That was a
Man,
vicious.
I'm going. I'm going low Bob just because I think you said Feely. I'm going low Bob just to be the heel.
All right,
Um,
that'll be our one for us to go against each other. When you do
yeah,
our picks, we'll start picking one against each other, then we'll go
yeah,
with that one.
yeah. That'll be the one. I'll write that down. So I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna go sit Smiling Sam just because that guy just makes me happy. I don't know. I probably should research this cat he's fighting because you made it sound like he was a bad man. I'm gonna go Kelleher just because I got a soft spot in my heart for that dude. I'm gonna go Martin Held because I think he has had a really tough run with some really tough opponents, and he's finally got a guy who doesn't even have a freaking Wikipedia page. So I'm going with Martin Held. And you're gonna have to help me out here with these first two ones. I know Jan Blachowicz, and that's another name that we can get into all day, and Devin Clark, but I don't know anything about this Oscar and this Jonathan Wilson cat.
So
Wait, Jonathan Wilson, I'm familiar
Jonathan Wilson is coming down.
from.
He was
I see.
fighting at
He got knocked out or TKO'd by De Silva,
yeah.
Henrique De Silva. Decision loss to Kutalaba, but before that he was undefeated.
Yeah, the
Um,
decision loss to Kutalaba. It was a fun fight. I recommend it. It's one of those fights that if I had somebody, and it's crazy because it's a newer fight. It's about a year happened a year ago, but so newer for modern MMA, I should say. That if I had friends that I was trying to introduce to MMA and they wanted to see some people like just fight and put on a good, I'd watch the fight because while Kutalaba like definitely won the fight,
which one you
Jonathan,
talking about? Kutalaba versus Wilson?
Wilson just slowed down,
Oh, I
and
remember that. That was the Dotson Lineker card in Portland.
that was a heck of a fight. Like that was a
I forgot
scrap.
all about that fight.
Kutalaba
I
boxed
forgot
him
all
up,
about
but I
that fight.
mean there was a few times where I thought he was going to. And there's actually Jonathan Wilson fights out of Millennia MMA, and I know that because although I picked against him, Millennia MMA actually liked my fight pick on Twitter.
Nice.
So now I feel like if Wilson upsets Piachota, I have to go and I owe them an apology.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. Ah,
It's almost like
it
little
does.
Like was calling me out.
Yeah, you might have to pay for your sins there.
Yeah, I'll eat
Yeah,
that
so
crow.
we'll go Wilson. We'll go Wilson from me.
I think Wilson's gonna slow down. He's has to make the trip where Oscar is actually, a local fighter and has really good striking. I think he'll slow down from the weight cut and the travel, and then after a strong first round, I think Piachota is gonna come in and take over.
I heard that. I heard that. And what you thinking about Jan Blachowicz versus Devin Clark? Devin Clark. Let's see what this man's record's looking
I think
like.
Devin Clark is gonna give Juan his walking papers. The Lon Blachowicz is
He's
like
got a tough time of him as he really. Oh, the only loss on his career is to Alex Nicholson, and that was a one punch KO. It looked like in his middle-weight debut. Oh, his
he
first
was
fight in the UFC was coming down from. He was the RFA light heavyweight champion. Then his first fight, I guess he took. It might have been a short notice fight against Alex
so
Nicholson.
he was doing really well in that fight, and he went in against Nicholson, and Nicholson just rotated out from against the cage and hit him with this short left right, and the
Yeah,
left kind of stumbled him, and the right just like knocked him over. and it was
Yeah,
a lot of that was just based on positioning. It was a really weird finish. It was like he kind of rushed himself into this short left. It threw him off, and then Nicholson, I believe it was the right, just flattened him. But it wasn't just flattened him because it knocked him down to one knee because he was trying to position himself to go against the cage and was trying to like go in a scramble for a takedown, and he just kind of ran right into it.
I mean, when you train with Mike Perry, I expect you to have some pretty strong hands, and
Yeah.
I will not take that away from him. I mean, I know Alex Nicholson's not in the UFC anymore, but I mean,
Yeah, and Clark is
so doesn't mean
fighting
you
out
don't
of
have like
Jackson Winklejohn.
a should be
So I
good.
think he's going to be able to use his. He's got great wrestling. I think he's going to be able to do the same thing, survive an early storm against Blachowicz, and then he's going to go ahead and get that decision by grinding out the last 2 rounds.
Fair enough. And this is where it gets interesting. Do you think you're familiar? You watching Invicta, right? So you know who Jody Escobel is, right?
I love Invicta. I do.
She is coming over from Invicta. I am correct on that, right?
She is. She's coming over from.
She was an atomite over there.
Um,
He was for a while. I think she just started going up
now because I think her last 2 fights have been a strawweight at least because
yeah, she lost to Alexa Grasso. That was the main event in July of 2016. Then she won her next fight at the Evander Kunishkayev rematch, which was earlier this year in March. But before that, her only other loss was to Alex Chambers back in April 2013 by rear naked choke. I don't know. I think Carolina's gonna get a finish here. I would hate to say that she's gonna grind her out for 3 rounds, but I guess is Jody's more of a grappling type, but she doesn't have it. She has one TKO on her record, but it seems like everything else is submission and decision.
Her last couple of fights, she's a pressure fighter. She likes to walk you down and throw shots at you. And I don't think she's going to be able to do that against Kowalkiewicz. I predicted in my official picks, I predicted Kowalkiewicz to finish her with strikes from the clinch. She showed against Grasso. I mean, Escobel showed against Grasso that she's hittable in the clinch. She doesn't. It's not as strong as I think she thinks her clinch game is.
Let me check this out because I forgot. Did I tell you about this app that I use? It's called Verdict MMA. Are you familiar with it?
I have the app. I'm familiar with them on Twitter.
Yeah, it's basically like you can pick fights, and it's almost like you gambling, but you're gambling experience points. So it's just like you versus like all your Twitter followers, or you versus the whole world, and you see where you stack up. But basically, you pick a winner of the fight for each of the main cards. You pick a winner of the fight, method of victory, and a round. And if you get all 3 right, you get like multipliers. If you get 1, 2, or you get points for. Like you have to get the victory first, you have to get the method of victory second, then you have to get the third. It has to be in that order. It can't be in just any random order. And you get points for that, and then you can also score it round by round. So let me make sure I'm sitting here not telling a lie. So I got, let's see.
I'm downloading the app now.
Yeah. So, did you say? Did I say I have Wilson in the first fight? Because I have to change my pick here.
Yes.
Oh, is he the underdog in that fight, or he's the favorite?
I believe he's the favorite because he's probably going to be the bigger guy, and he has UFC experience. A lot of guys probably think there's just some regional. I think a lot of people are thinking that Piachota is going to be some regional can they just put on there because he's a local guy.
You think he's going to take him down, submit him? You think he's going to try to put some pressure on him, grind him out?
I think Wilson's gonna try and go out there and try and strike with him. Piotra's gonna survive, and then he's gonna pick up the volume and outpace him for the last couple rounds.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the decision on that. The next fight, let's see where we at. I said Blachowicz by KO round 1. I guess I'll stick with that just because I don't want to see him get his walking papers. But I do respect Devin Clark, and I think that there's a very good chance that you might be accurate on that one, sir.
Yep, and I hate to be the guy that says like pick somebody to take that L that's probably going to take give them their walking papers. But I would feel guilty against that, and I don't want to feel like I'm wishing any bad karma on Juju on any guys. But I'll tell you that I think that hey, I mean, I think that Juan's tough run was a little too tough,
Yeah,
and
and
initially, and
he'll never be
he
the
wasn't,
same.
yeah, he wasn't paced right.
Yeah, and
But
he'll
I
never
think
be the
Devin
same.
Clark is a legit future contender.
Interesting. Do you think Carolina's gonna get the finish? For the way I see this fight going down, and kind of agree with what you were saying about her not being able to walk Carolina down. I see this fight going kind of similar to how the Carolina's fight with Joanna went, but with roles reversed. So I think Jody's going to be trying to walk down Carolina, and Carolina's just going to be popping back with shots that she wasn't ready for. I think she got in the words of my good friend Fred Kirby, Kirby MMA, follow him on Twitter. He got
Oh, I do.
she got thunderstruck or thunderfucked, whatever it is, by just a couple shots. Yeah, I think she's gonna get thunderfucked by maybe the hands in the second round. I'm gonna go TKO second round.
I'm going with Kowalkiewicz by TKO as well. I think she's going to do it from the clinch, knees and elbows.
That's
Esther Bell showed a weakness, has shown clinch weakness in her last couple of fights, and like I said, she likes to march you down and stand in front of you, and it's going to be hard against somebody like Carolina who throws punches and bunches. If you look at Carolina's fights, even if she's losing, she's still throwing combos. She's never throwing one shot.
Yeah, man, she's a very fun fighter to watch. And I mean this main event, man. How do you feel about the matchmaking? First of all, do you think it's too soon for Darren Till, or do you think this is that perfect opportunity where it's the young cat gets his opportunity to either sink or swim?
I think it's a good matchmaking. It's a good matchup. I would say it's maybe one fight too soon, but at the same time, I mean, he's got that Rory Mack thing going for him to where he just may be ready now. But I do have Cerrone winning. I think Cerrone will get a decision. It'll be hard fought. I think it'll probably be closer initially, but I
Right.
think it'll kind of go possibly where was it the Miles Jury fight? How it kind of shifted after the first round.
Because Miles has something to prove in that fight, and you remember the end of that fight when he had Miles was on his back because he just didn't want to get up, and then Donald just started unleashing those kicks.
The fuck you kicks, as they called them.
The fuck you kicks, man. I am a big fan of Darren Till. Do not get me wrong.
Me too.
I think he's a great fighter. I think he's got sensational hands. I think Cowboy is going to revert back to the Cowboy we saw when he first started out at 170 and start trying to take guys down like Rick Story, take guys down like who was the other guy I fought? I can't remember that he was taken down. But yeah, anyway,
he beat up Patrick Cote and was the first dude to finish him.
Yeah, beat the crap out of him, just wrestling dominant. I would like to see him do that if he gets clipped, but if he gets lured into a striking exchange like he did with Masvidal, he could easily get clipped, especially after he's taken a couple. He got beat the crap out of him by RDA. He got the crap beat out of him by Masvidal. Yeah,
he got the crap beat out of him at RDA, but he took that body shot so early on.
Yeah,
RDA is so strong at throwing those body shots, and it's a solid body shot can ruin anybody from anyone. That was just RDA just so precise with that shot,
right.
and he really didn't take too much damage in that, except because it was over so quick. But if you look back, he did really well against Lawler. Lawler couldn't put him away, and he was still ready to go. They could have kept going a few more rounds. I
would have loved to see that fight get 5 rounds, but
it should have. But
it was also seemed like a diminished version of Lawler. So I don't know. There's a lot I still want to see from Cowboy following that fight, and then there's a lot I still want to see from Lawler. All our all of our questions are going to get answered. But for this fight, I don't see Darren Till really being able to make it. As much as I respect him, I don't see him being able to really make it into those deep waters. Because I mean, I don't believe he has, but I'll double check his record. Has he ever actually fought in a 5-round title fight and made it through all 5 rounds? I know he's undefeated.
Till has never gone 5 rounds. I do not believe.
He went to the 4th round one time in Apucarana, Brazil. That was the only time in his career. Every single other one of his fights have been,
Lorette Costa Silva is who he fought. Costa or
yeah.
Silva.
And I mean, every single one of his UFC fights have been decisions. I mean, he's been beating the crap out of people, but he was knocking everybody out in the regional scene. So you just got to be careful, Donald. Don't get clipped. If you can just get them in, maybe take them down early in the first couple rounds, just get them thinking and get them guessing. Go from there, and then get them into the third, maybe even the fourth round. I really think that's Donald's fight to win all day, easy money. But it's MMA. Crazier things have happened. I would not be surprised if we wake up Monday morning and the headline is Donald Cerrone gets knocked out in the first round by Cerrone-Till.
Yeah.
What that would.
See, that would surprise me, and that's crazy. Like Darren Till, I mean, it would surprise me too, but at the same time, I see where you come from, though, where it wouldn't surprise you as well, because Darren Till looks like he's a legit prospect, but I do think it's maybe one fight or two too soon for him. But heck, if he can do it, let's do it. I think he'll be a game opponent. In my official picks, I did say that I think he'd be a game opponent, but it
Mm-hmm.
would be a great learning experience. Uh,
One way
Cerrone
or the
said
other, yeah.
something along the lines of, I can't get it word for word, but he said something along the lines of, for a motherfucker to come in here and think he's gonna steamroll me, he's out of his fucking mind.
Yeah, and Cerrone 1,000% believes that. There's not a bone in his body that does not believe that he's
And
about to come in there and just treat this kid just like he treated Miles Jury when I think Miles Jury beat Diego Sanchez or somebody who was on his team, and he was like talking all this stuff like, "Oh, I'm gonna take out Cowboy. I'm gonna be the next guy," and then he comes in and he just treats you like the infant that you are in the sport of MMA. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Darren Till. That's what did happen with Miles Jury, but I see where you're coming from. That could definitely be an option.
yeah, I mean, and Cerrone seems like he's slowed down a little bit since the Masvidal fight and the Matt Brown fight, because he was hittable in the Matt Brown fight. He was very hittable
Yeah,
in the
he
Matt Brown
he
fight.
dropped. He got dropped in the second round if I'm not mistaken, before he
And
landed that high kick. And it's
man,
a good fight. It was
that
a lot
was
better fight than people remember. They just remember that high kick that
yeah,
put Matt Brown's lights out, but it was a great fight.
I mean, Matt Brown's biggest thing is that he's been a lot like Cerrone, to where he's been too willing to fight, and that's what's cost him
Mhm.
fights. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely. And
he
he
had that great run up there for a while, up until like
yeah,
people remember the
until he fought
Lawler fight
Robbie, I
was
think.
fun. The fight with him and
Yeah,
Lawler was
he was one
great,
round away from beating. He was one round away from getting a title shot against Johnny Hendricks.
and then Lawler just turned it up on him.
I think he even fought Johnny Hendricks in a 5-round fight after he had lost to Lawler too.
He
So he
did.
was right there. He's kind of very similar in like a I'm sorry, who was I thinking of? So another guy who a cowboy who gets to the big fights, beats the crap out of everybody along the way, gets to the big fight, and then blows it. So this is one of those fights that that Cowboy's supposed to win because like when he fought for what was it, Fernando Martins, he head kick knocks him out. Alex Oliveira, he either a triangle or mounted
Oh,
triangle.
Adriano Martins.
Adriano Martins, yeah, head kick him, starched him. Who was the cat he fought on short notice? McDessie. That was actually the craziest. That was actually the craziest thing I have ever predicted. I didn't bet like officially. It was kind of like a little just like a bet I'd written down with some friends. We were just seeing who could predict that card. I think it was the DC and it was the Weidman Belfort card, but also on that third fight down was Cerrone and McDessie, and I said Cowboy second round high kick, and it's exactly what happened. That was the highlight of my MMA borderline gambling career. After that, I was like, maybe I could do this, and I was like, I don't really have the money to put into it, but I just got to find a place where I'm not like breaking the bank, but still like can make some quality, smart decisions. Because I get the predictions right. I mean, there's so many gimmies in this sport. I mean, there are a lot of fights that with value, but there's a lot of times like a McGregor, like the McGregor Mayweather, like if you had $1,000 to bet on Mayweather and like knocking him out in like the later rounds and you didn't do it, I think you're crazy because that's easy money right there.
No, I
Because
agree.
seeing that come, yeah. Oh man, I'm tired, dude. I don't know about you, man.
All right, yeah, I am too. You want to
Do you
try
know? Do you know
and
what time the? Do you know what time the? Can you look up real quick and see what time the fights start for everybody who's watching? Anybody out there? It looks like we got viewers
yep, I'm
squad.
going
We
out here
appreciate
right
you
now.
guys.
It looks like live event.
I'm terrible with time zones, man.
I'm
Where'd
just
you say you're
pulling.
from again?
I'm from the East Coast. I'm only an hour ahead of you. I'm in
Word
Virginia.
dope.
You're in, but you know what? For all of intents and purposes of my stream and media purposes, I am from Colorado.
Perfect.
Idiot.
That's all I need to know.
Nah, yeah.
I would love. I would love to be physically, spiritually your way in Colorado, if I could be.
Nah, I'm not. I'm a state over from you, bro. Like
Uh,
right up the street. So,
well,
you're in, what are you, Memphis?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in
Out here
Richmond.
in 901,
Yep, I'm in
the
Richmond. I
third
got a
most
buddy of mine that
dangerous.
just, one of my best friends just moved to Memphis. I could go out there and
Yeah,
visit him. I'll have to hit you up. Uh,
people, yeah, for sure. People out here, like, like we look at like Chicago as like the most dangerous city in the country, and then we introduce people and say we're from Memphis, and they're like, "Oh my God, like, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Dude, yeah, like I grew up in a not so great part of town. I made it out."
yeah, that's me as well. So the fight pass prelims start at 11:45 a.m. Eastern time,
Okay.
and that would be, I don't know what I just clicked on here. Oh my God, I'm terrible.
I
Okay,
got it.
and
For
then
me,
the main card starts. So all the prelims are on Fight Pass, and there's no Fox or FX prelims. All the prelims on Fight Pass, they start at 11:45 Eastern,
uh-huh.
and the main card starts at 3 o'clock Eastern.
Cool. So
Let's see.
to 2:45 and 2. So I got about, if I go to bed right now, I can get 8 hours of sleep. I wish that was an option. I wish I could just like immediately go down. I don't know about you, but I'm one of those guys I cannot just like get in bed and immediately fall asleep. That's why
Oh,
I just
who
sit on my phone and Twitter for like an hour. If I fall asleep within the next hour, I can get like 7 hours of sleep before I have to be up to start watching this stuff.
Bro, I did a one-man catering event tonight, and I'm here at almost at 2:45 in the morning doing this with you because I know even though I'm tired, as soon as I lay down, I could be exhausted. But as soon as I lay down, I'm gonna close my eyes and be like, "Hey, let's think about everything in the world." And then suddenly I'll be thinking about fights. I'll be making notes in my phone. I'll have to
Dude, I was
wonder. I'll start thinking of some obscure fighter that I'm like, "What did Nam Tham would do? When was his last fight?"
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, man. I'm literally the exact same way. I was honestly like so glad when you messaged me because I was like, I'm literally about to go live and just rant by myself because I was so mad at the anticlimactic whole deal with the whole Bellator thing tonight. And I was like, I really just need to rant, just get some stuff off my chest. But I think it was good for all the, maybe it looks like we had like a couple, like maybe 4 or 5 people in and out. Hopefully, a couple people get to watch this before the fights in the morning. And if not, maybe we can give them a nice little reaction tomorrow night. And if not, get ready for those big cards, man. 217 coming up.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited for 217. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do 217. I'll probably do a live stream as well on my Twitch of like a companion to me watching it
Oh, that's
and
pretty
just
cool.
talking about it. So if you would be interested in possibly dropping by for that as well, we can throw you
Dude,
on
yeah, I mean,
there.
I'll watch them at my. I usually watch them at my house. Like, I literally like I can see my TV from here, so like I could literally just like have my setup. Like, you want me to like stream it, like stream in with you, or like audio, or is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just join.
Or you want me
Jump
to,
into the jump into
oh,
the
the Discord?
Discord. I'll throw you up on
Okay.
some. I
Yeah,
can even
dude.
throw you up some video on there too, so you can have a breakdown of some fights and stuff. We can talk more about that over the next week or whatnot.
Yeah, I'm down. I think I'm about to hit the hay, man.
Yeah, me too.
It's been a pleasure once again. Thank you guys for watching. This has been the I don't know what we're calling this yet. We're gonna do MikeyTMMA meets God. What's your Twitter handle again? Fraymous.
Famous.
MikeyTMMA meets Fraymous. Uh, thanks guys for watching. We'll see you next time. Hopefully, we'll have maybe some more guests, a cool name, really cool what you call it, like an intro that I can do for my videos. I just edited the Ryzen video that you sent me that we did, and it's got my buddy rendered it. And it's got like really flashy, like MikeyTMMA pops up. Like it was originally for my podcast, but I feel like I can probably these videos, like if we ever edit them or anything. But yeah, big things on the way. Thank you guys for watching. I assume if I hit stop broadcast, it's going to just stop broadcast and you and I can still talk for a second. But to all of the listeners out there and viewers, thank you guys. We'll see you next time. It's another episode of the MikeyTMMA meets Fraymous, whatever you want to call it. And we are out. Peace.